Hi guys, this is Rene Perez with ConciergePad. Thank you so much for joining me. You could be doing something else, but you've decided to dedicate some time to look through this presentation, so we appreciate it. We're going to take you through the entire volunteer clearance system and how it relates to our existing volunteer module. So I hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. So what we're going to cover right now is what a potential volunteer will experience with respect to going through a level 1 or level 2 background check. If you log into ConciergePad, under the quick links, you'll notice two new options, volunteer clearance and volunteer log. If we go into volunteer clearance and we click on the submit button, here is the link that you will paste onto your current website, and there will be a button here that says volunteer opportunities, and when they click on that button, the parent or potential volunteer would be navigated or redirected to this volunteer. I took the liberty of pre-populating some of the important fields that are required as part of this form. So I'm going to pretend or mimic that I'm Johnny Appleseed here. But there are some other things that are asked as part of this process, like have you already been cleared this school year? The reason why we asked this question is because if you're a school, in particular Miami-Dade, and there's a volunteer that has already been cleared, we have that archived information already on hand, and there is no need for that parent or potential volunteer to go through this form. This form is specifically for volunteers that have never been cleared and that want the opportunity to volunteer for a given school. The other information that is required is emergency information, so the name, the emergency phone number, and the emergency email, and then what type of screening you want to apply for. So I'm going to go ahead and select a level 1, click on the submit button, and then this returns a link to the application. The volunteer also gets an email with the link to start the application process in the event that they close this window or something like that. One of the things that's very important to note is with this new volunteer module, there is the ability to add a volunteer admin for the school. And that volunteer admin gets a notification every time something happens with respect to the volunteer process. So every time there's a new applicant, the volunteer admin would get a note or receive a notification. Every time a report is completed, that volunteer admin would also get a notification. So I'm going to start this application process as Johnny Appleseed. And as you can see, some of my information is already pre-populated based on what the inputs were on that form that we were just on. And then there's other important information that is part of this process, like the social security number, the zip code, the telephone number. There's also disclosures and text that the user would have to accept and acknowledge. And then it would also finally require a signature, an electronic signature, to complete the application. Okay, click on this submit button. And then the volunteer is now complete with submitting the application, and the volunteer admin as well as the volunteer both get notifications saying that this report is complete. So the nice thing about this process is once a report is completed, the information is available immediately in ConciergePad. So if I am in this volunteer queue window, I can now go and look up Johnny, and I can search for that individual and see information that is related to him, like his email address that he supplied, when that this volunteer was created, or started the application process, what type of background check they applied for. I can also search for all my volunteers, let's say for the month of November. So there's a lot of data that you can filter through to look at a particular volunteer rather quickly. Having said that, there's also the ability to view, again, if you are part of the Miami-Dade County Public School District, you can also view past or historical volunteers that we have on hand using this module. If I go to the volunteer log link, this link will tell the volunteer admin everything that has happened in terms of different triggers or events along the way. So if I, again, wanted to see different things that have happened throughout the volunteer workflow, I can look up the entire month of November, hit search, and this is kind of stepping through what has taken place for each volunteer. So you can see things like invitations that have been created, invitations that have been complete, reports that have already been completed, reports that are still in a pending state, like our application. So if I was to go and look up Johnny, and I hit search, you would see that there's a report completed, but it's still pending. So when it moves from pending to, let's say, cleared, or pending to consider, the status would show up in this particular module. And there is a way to filter to a particular status. So if we just wanted to see all the volunteers that have been cleared, I can hit search, and then it'll give me all the volunteers that have already been cleared. Or if I want to see the problematic volunteers that have been are in consider state, I can search for just the considers and look up that information like so. So managing volunteer events in ConciergePad is very straightforward. When you're in the volunteer queue module, you want to click on this Manage Events button. And here it's going to ask the volunteer admin for some basic information that is related to the event. For instance, the event name. So I'm going to say it's a field trip. And for the event description, I'm going to say Museum of Science Fun Trip. It's going to require a start date and time. So I'm going to say it's going to be on November 29th at 10 a.m. with a return on November 29th at 3 p.m. And then there's this capacity drop down, which tells the system how many volunteers are allowed to participate for this particular item. So I'm going to say there's 20 volunteers that are allowed to participate for this event. And when all the information looks good, I just click on this Add Events button, and this will add the new event or the upcoming event to ConciergePad, where then we can connect volunteers to this event, and the volunteers would be notified accordingly. So now if we want to alert our cleared volunteers of their participation for an event that we've already created, we go to the dashboard screen, and under the quick links, we locate the event manager option, and then we can click on the submit button, and it'll take us to this window where we can further configure our event. So for the event dropdown, there is our field trip that we created to the Museum of Science. We could supply more detail, something like we have to be on time for this event. We can activate our cleared volunteers. Let's look for Johnny, who is our example volunteer in this case. There he is. I can add him to the participant bucket. And I can also add more volunteers as long as the capacity is under the 20 that we set previously when we were creating the event. We could then change or update the date of arrival for the event and the date of the departure, but in this case, we're going to leave the date and times as the default. And when I click on this send invite, this will generate a mass email and text message if the mobile number was supplied, where the volunteers will receive an invitation that has an associated QR code, and that QR code can be used to expedite the check-in process the day of the event when they sign in to the ConciergePad iPad app. So I'm gonna click on this send invite. This sends that email blast to all of the volunteers that were associated for this event, as well as a text message as well. So now I want to show you what the volunteer would experience the day of the event when it's time for them to check in to ConciergePad. So they can just click on the check-in button and they can select this email sign-in option. And with the email address that they use to apply for the level 1 or level 2 background check, they can put it in the text box, click on the check-in button, and then I'm gonna click on this yes option and it'll download all my information presented on the screen. And the only thing that the volunteer has to do at this point is select that they are here for volunteering. And this will activate or initiate the research that is needed to return what state that volunteer is in as of this day. So we just applied for the level 1, our application is still pending, and as you can see, it brings back that orange visual to let the user know that. If the volunteer was cleared, it would state cleared, and if the individual was considered, meaning there was something negative on their profile, it would notify the volunteer admin immediately, and their status would be colored in red. So I'm going to go through the check-in process manually and use my information. Put my last name, put my date of birth, and I'm going to use the email address that I submitted for my level 1 background check, who I'm here to see for the day of the event. And when I click on this volunteer option, it returns that I am cleared, and it also describes or lets the user know where the background check originated from. And this is important because you can register at one particular school and then go to a neighboring charter school and check in as a volunteer. So essentially, a volunteer can use their clearance credentials across different schools as long as that school is using the ConciergePad application. One interesting thing to note from a reporting standpoint is that school administration can generate the same volunteer reports that they do today, but it will have more detail, like if the volunteer was cleared or not and where that registration originated from. The other thing that we've been able to accomplish is to attach a student ID to a parent or a guardian volunteering on behalf of that student. In the charter school space, a lot of times there is an obligation to perform 30 volunteer hours, and what this will do is track, record, and reduce the balance as volunteers are performing their duty and volunteering for a particular event and things of that nature. So that's it. That concludes a brief presentation on our new volunteer clearance system and how it integrates with our existing volunteer management module. If you have any questions or feedback, please let us know. If you would like to set up a demo to take a deeper dive on this new feature, we can set that up. Thank you and have a great day.